You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
What are you doing later?
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes.
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
It would make a lot more sense if, like, Tom Segura's a bit where he's like, back in the day when daddy had to buy weed, he had to hop in a strange man's car and pretend to be friends with him for a couple hours.
Was 7-Eleven closed, Dad? What was going on?
Yeah. Or you know what? Even today's world, if you've had enough weed before you get in your own car, it might seem a little unfamiliar as well.
That is true. And don't get in your own car if you've smoked too much weed.
No, I'm
That is
saying
true.
Yuri was driving and you're like, who is this strange man in their car?
I'm your wife. That's what you want me to think.
That's
Yeah.
that's what a strange guy would say to me.
Well, in any case, if you could manage to bring some to Vegas for that weekend that we were talking about just before you hopped on, JP. So we don't end
thanks for
up
including me.
trying to buy joints from whatever fucking place we went on the strip that was not weed. I think it was actual just rolled up oregano. And I'm not sure how much Aaron Balake paid for it, but it was...
It was like $70 for like 4 joints.
For
or something.
4 joints, super small joints.
of oregano.
But yeah, would you even call oregano rolled up in paper joints? I don't know.
I don't know.
You bought
Maybe.
4 of whatever those would be called.
Don't buy weed on the strip, kids, is the
Oh
lesson
no.
here.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Don't really
Yeah,
buy
good
anything
takeaway.
on the strip.
Then I think this episode's done. We've served our purpose. We've helped the public.
I think so. Well, we went a little long and hard last week, so if we
A
just
little.
go for
Oh,
if we just talk about weed and fake weed for about 2.5 minutes and add that to last week's episode, then we come out to the average of 2 normal episodes. So I think that'd be right. We can talk about the spring game if there was anything that happened in the spring game. I actually do want to talk about the spring game, but it's people were making a lot of fun of the spring game, and I'm like just jealous because I don't want to talk about crazy realignment chaos in this. We'll be able to do that all summer. I don't want to have another whole call to arms, fuck everything type thing, even though I still firmly believe everything. I stand on everything we said last week.
Oh yeah.
I went back and re-listened to all of it. I had a funny moment re-listening to last week's episode. I normally don't listen start to finish, but I was like, there's a chance that maybe someone follows up here, which sounds narcissistic as hell. But just want to be like, hey, like what was in my notes and what did I say? Just in case, someone reaches out to be like, hey, come on, like be more fair to the athletes. And I was like, I think we're pretty fair. Or be more fair to the administration. And I think we're perfectly fair. Just wanted to, take stock of everything we said. And it's the end of the episode. We're doing, you can't spell chop 'em without hope. So chop 'em, chop 'em, chop 'em. I said gloves fucking off. And Ben yelled, burn it down. And the outro music, JP, had like already pretty much was like about to end as Ben yelled burn it down, so there wasn't like much more of a fade out. I don't think we provided you with one because we went too long. Instantly after yelled Ben burn it down, it went into the intro of the Bill Simmons podcast with Bill Simmons yelling, oh my god. And I was like, what's that? I wasn't high, but I could have
Do we have Bill Simmons as a guest? He was just a silent guest the whole time?
He was Bill, just because I even haven't like listened to Bill Simmons. I've listened to a bunch of Inner Pause. I haven't really listened to the Bill Simmons podcast for a while, so I don't know how like that would have been like the next thing. I don't even think it's on my followed list. I listened to one episode like a month and a half ago when like he had Austin Rivers on to talk about Anthony Edwards, but so it was just Benny yelling burn it down followed like immediately by Bill Simmons in perfect conversation with like Benny's tone yelling oh my god. And I was like, did we get Bill Simmons? Like we talked about, like
He'd been in the waiting room for
deals
2.5 hours.
We need to get everyone on our team. It doesn't matter who. That might be some karmic synergy for us to reach out to Bill Simmons and just he's not a billionaire, but he's a millionaire or at least a thousandaire.
Yeah, he's
definitely he might be up to 100 million at this point with the Spotify deal that the Ringer got. I don't know if it's quite that, but
does he still run The Athletic? Wasn't he a part of like who's that?
Who runs The Athletic?
I don't
know who runs
the New York
Bill
Times.
Simmons is probably right.
Doesn't the New York Times own The Athletic?
I thought Bill Simmons launched The Athletic, but it must have been the Ringer that he launched.
When he left ESPN, he launched the Ringer.
Yeah, The Athletic is a sports department of the New York Times. They were purchased like a while ago. Yeah.
Weird.
There was January 6, 2022. They were purchased for $550 million.
The New York Times needs to focus on
overvalued.
The New York Times.
The New York Times made a bad business decision. Who would have thought?
I think that's a great business decision.
All right, except for it's really easy to not have to have a subscription to The Athletic, but I won't tell the whole public and listener body that.
Just everyone who DMs you.
Yeah. It's a well-known thing to like. There's a million with the websites that can get past their paywall. You can put it in reader mode on your browser as soon as the page loads, and you're in for the whole article.
You just said you weren't going to tell everybody.
I didn't. Don't incriminate me, Terry.
That was a coded message.
Yeah. Take it how you will, but try.
Well, I'll be deleting my Athletic subscription as soon as we get off this.
My subscription.
So much for getting Bill Simmons on.
He's not part of The Athletic.
Oh, Terry, I thought he launched it.
He's a competitor. He made
$550 million.
Hey, Athletic, I still love you, and it's a fucking $12 a year subscription. I will not be canceling it.
Then $550 million is a bad.
You're just paying. You're paying a New York Times subscription, really.
Probably.
Oh,
yeah. That's what it is now. So whatever. I mean, nothing against the New York Times. All I'm saying is The Athletic doesn't exist. It's a sports department and a brand within the New York Times.
Oh man, I'd send you guys that mind blown emoji if we were texting about this. That's crazy.
I think you can do that in this app known as a Zoom in the reactions area.
You can do one of these. Is it be this? No, it'd be like
they don't.
Or lasers. Pew 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 pew.
How are you doing this? I'm still trying to find the mind blown.
The mind blown. They don't have mind blown. They have almost all of the Apple emojis, but not quite.
Yeah.
What? Are you kidding?
The mind blown one is not there.
Wow. Why would they take that away? That's like such a really important way for self-expression.
I don't think they ever took that away.
Well, it's clearly limited. I mean, emojis are like like Times New Roman font. Like it's like accepted on every device that has character recognition.
So they just haven't put in all of the characters then.
You don't have to put them in. It's like a font.
Like Courier New.
Yeah. Well, or Comic Sans.
Okay. Yeah.
Papyrus. Let's just name fonts, guys. I'm surprised you guys know this many fonts.
Oh,
well, I know Courier New because if it was required that my paper had to be 2 pages and it was 1.5 pages in Times New Roman.
Yeah.
I'm a big Helvetica guy.
Caught on to that trick. I guarantee it. This is episode 138 of the Belligerent Beefs podcast.
I wanted to shout out a font on Google, Lobster. That one's cool.
Especially if you're from Boston and you have to say it. Lobster.
Yeah. Or if you're from Maine.
Yeah.
I bet they love using the Lobster font.
Oh, dude, I bet the Lobster font is heavily used.
I just want the record to reflect that I tried to get this episode on track, and now we're just gonna we can talk about lobster there for the rest of the episode. I don't give a shit.
Imagine but professors in Maine are like, please submit your papers
in lobster
in lobster font, minimum 8 pages. Single space.
I'll email the English department at the University of Maine and see what some of the requirements are. I'll just ask for a syllabus.
I just changed our entire 150-page outline into lobster.
I wonder what lobster.
Oh, this font sucks.
Oh, it's called lobster.
I'm looking at it on my phone and it has not changed.
No, mine hasn't changed either. Actually.
Well, then why do you don't like it?
Now, because it was in Arial and I don't like Arial either.
Oh, whoa! Now it's in lobster.
Now it's in lobster.
It looks like
I don't like
it's
it.
Classy. It's classy.
It's not as readable.
It kind of reminds me of like the Maserati font. How do you spell Maserati?
Mazerati. No. It's an S,
isn't it?
I don't spend a lot of time looking up Maseratis, so I apologize.
All right. Well, now that this episode is so far off track and Terry can't spell Maserati, let's put this in Bebe's Nua font and get on with the show. Ooh, that's a good one. God, that's a good one. We use that for our V1 branding.
In what font?
Bebes Nuas.
Bebes Nuas?
Nue.
Oh, this
French
is
word,
almost
I think.
like Courier New. Kind
No.
of. It has
Courier
Courier
News
New
like-
vibes.
Courier News like a typewriter.
Like DOS. I think.
Wingdings. You guys ever use that one? It had all the what the hell?
Oh, that's a font.
Yeah, Wingdings. It was the one that had all the weird like characters that had no real letters.
Oh.
Like hieroglyphs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
it was like-
hieroglyphics?
yeah.
Is this? I feel like we were talking about hieroglyphs not too long ago.
You're just hieroglyph.
I'm a
I'm good.
I'm a Times New Roman loyalist.
You're so basic. I'm a lobster loyalist now. Starting now.
Say lobster loyalist in your best Maine accent.
I don't do accents. I'll be like lobster
You-
loyalist.
Hey, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you.
honestly, the worst. I had a lobster in Boston, and it was probably the worst lobster I've ever had in my
Whoa.
life.
Did you go to like the Red Lobster by the Boston airport?
No, it was on the waterfront, and so I'm assuming it was probably a tourist trap.
Wow.
It was super. It was really not. a
We've
very
got
good
listeners
lobster.
in the New England area. Now I'm worried that we're playing with fire here.
No. I'm trying to think of the place. I went to a lobster spot at the end of the Cape, like at the very end of the Cape.
Oh, I bet that was
And-
pretty good lobster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. I think it was Cape Fish and Lobsters. It was good. I would highly recommend that place. And then I went on. Maybe it wasn't this place. I don't know what it was, but it was a little. I got a lobster roll at the end of the Cape, and then I got to go play on the beach. But I was like
Nice.
35.
I haven't been to Boston since I was like 16, but I do watch The Departed at least once a year.
Oh,
Wow.
Little
Once a
Italy
year.
is the coolest place in Boston to me. I had a cannoli there, and it was the best cannoli I've ever had.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
this
Yeah.
on that
Boston
same
is the
trip?
best and worst of food.
So you had the best cannoli you've ever had in your life, and you had the worst lobster you've ever had in your
Yeah.
life on the same trip to Boston.
Yeah,
That's a good metaphor for the human
But-
condition, I guess.
yeah, and I haven't had
Can't
that
get
many
too high,
lobsters
can't
or
get too low.
cannolis. Yeah.
But I'm an expert on neither, so don't accept my opinion on this at all. I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I'm glad we spent the last 2.5 minutes of this podcast on focus on it.
Yeah.
I am too.
Anyway,
That was a
Quality
good idea.
conversation.
Good idea.
All
We should
right,
make this a new
well,
segment, the lobster segment.
no, we shouldn't. But this is episode
Lobster and
138
coffee.
of the Belligerent Beefs podcast. Your post spring game, post most spring sports, with the exception of baseball, softball, track, other stuff. So not most spring sports, I guess. But winter sports are all done with the conclusion of Jade Carey's magnificent season for Oregon State Gymnastics.
Yes.
Which took place over the weekend. We'll talk more about Jade. Congrats to her.
Shout out Jade.
And
the
yeah,
GOAT.
Yeah.
The GOAT.
The goat.
football spring camp is over. This is where we get into the nitty gritty, where more sports come to an end and we get to be back up on our bullshit even more. One might think we'd focus on off-season storylines more, but no, someone's got to go deep diving on fonts and the Boston food scene for this podcast about Oregon State athletics, and we're the guys to do it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the segment. I don't want to call it definitely not the Reagan Beer segment forever, but we have not given it a new name yet. One listener suggested the grain alcohol because what the fuck else is the point anymore segment, which I
Not
do
bad.
like. I like
Not
that a lot. So we can call it that. We can call it whatever. Anyway, I think we're gonna have some repeat appearances tonight. I've gone back to my usual hams. I'm not drinking Maker's Mark on the rocks this week because I don't got it like that quite yet to be able to drink fancy. Is it even that fancy? It's it's just nice whiskey. I think that's a fair assessment of Maker's Mark. It's nice
It's
whiskey.
nice.
Yeah.
Every week on the show. So I'm back to hams in a can, and yeah, it's delicious.
Nice.
I'm sure you have it a lot.
It's beer that tastes like beer.
Like
I
a
do
beer
love
should taste.
my favorite part of the copy on the hams can is that like
Is the
lip.
font in lobster font.
The font is definitely not lobster. But around the ring, it says the beer, ... refreshing.
They know their
Fair,
place.
Yeah.
They know their
Yeah.
place in the beer game.
You know, there's a role that has to be filled with beer, and it is just the refreshing factor. Like
That is the number one thing I want out of a beer is for
Yeah.
it to be refreshing.
yeah. I mean, if you had to
That is-
choose,
that is my top category. Like I want to feel refreshed.
I want a 10% ABV refreshing beer that goes down like water.
All right. I don't know how many of those there are, but do
I
you
know.
have one of those tonight? Let's just go to you.
No.
Big
Well,
guy.
I mean, yes, I'm drinking a Starburst, but
What's-
it's not the
what's the
same
A-
thing.
What's the ABV of Starburst?
I don't know, like 7.8.
Okay.
It's pretty standard.
Right. And Starburst is very refreshing.
Yeah, but you
One of
can't
the
have,
most
like, you
refreshing
can't be like
IPAs.
in the sun sweating and being like, I'm so
When
thirsty.
I visit you in the summer, I do because there's nothing else in your house that's other than just IPAs.
Yeah, well, even our tap water's hooked up to a Starburst keg. It's crazy.
What is
the kids don't know yet.
What's the number one like quote unquote shitty light beer in Portland these days? Would it be Rainier?
Yeah.
You watch your mouth.
I say shitty with love.
Yeah. There's a lot of Tecate Love, Rainier. Yeah, it's kind of.
Rolling Rock if we're at Marathon.
Oh yeah.
They replaced the
Ooh.
Natty Lager with Rolling Rock.
But
about
a
10
while
years
ago.
Yeah.
Any of the shitty beers, though, you get from the Marathon, don't they just all taste the same? They must just like
Yes.
alternate. They alternate tap lines. It's like when you like do like a vegetable like or a fruit tree mutation where you like mix pears and apples, and then you have a tree that does both. They just like
Yeah.
A papple.
intermix their tap lines. Yeah, and they're like, well, it's a mystery light beer now. We're breeding
Whatever.
a new blend.
It's cold and wet and basically free, and that's all I need when I go into Marathon Taverna.
I wonder if it is because they moved it from 250 to 275 maybe 10 years ago.
Fucking inflation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
inflation. God damn it.
Thanks, Biden.
Yeah.
Ruined my mini pictures, you bastard.
That's a 10% increase.
Pap still has to be pretty big with the youths in Portland today, I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
I don't
love
see it
that.
around as frequently though, but it's still there. Yeah, it's not as mainstream as it once was.
Now it's back to being cool then, because it got too mainstream, so it has to go
Maybe.
away for a little while.
Maybe, yeah, but maybe it's maybe because it's like retired mainstream, like even the hipsters don't.
That's how hipsterdom
Embrace.
works.
But maybe they don't embrace it because it's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't return to your roots. You're already gone. We've canceled you.
So do you
I don't
just
know.
have a Starburst tonight, JP?
That's all
No
for
need to
now.
say-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for now. Hey, and
So,
I gotta
old
shout
reliable.
out Warren DeGray.
Our guy D Gray.
Yeah, Warren Damas. He did offer out for a name for the segment, the Jaderade segment.
Ooh, Mercury's in Jaderade.
That's not bad either. Maybe we could change it to Jaderade once things start getting like better. I like it's
It needs to be
What was it?
negative.
well, what was the first
Should
one?
we-
It's
should we
green
name it?
alcohol, because why the fuck not?
Yeah.
That seems
It
more
needs to-
appropriate
should we
as
name
of
it-
right now.
Should we name it after like Bo Nix or some shit? just
No.
just a villain on the other side. And let's go on to the Chip Kelly Sad Hour segment, where we are rewatching 2011 Oregon State highlights and drinking rubbing alcohol.
The LeGarrette Blunt punch in the face segment.
Oh man! Even though neither of those, I would love to have LeGarrette Blunt and Byron Mount on this podcast just to relive that moment. I feel like a fight from 2008, I think it was 9.
Oh, that's right up our
8,
alley.
between an Oregon player and a Boise State player
Oh yeah.
should be reconciled on an Oregon State podcast.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
should. That would truly make
We are
sense.
mediators. We never start shit. We just fixed it.
Yeah.
I would also like to have Chip Kelly on the podcast. He is a villain that I surprisingly grew to appreciate.
Yeah.
Oh, how about
That's true.
LaMichael
He did-
James?
No.
Yeah. Great Niner.
Yeah,
Great
wonderful
Niner.
Niner. Oh, that was a day
81
after I was temporarily sheltering at my in-laws' house while we were trying to find a place to live relocation-wise, and it was like the second day I was there, and I was like hiding out in the opposite side of the house watching the draft on my laptop, and when the Niners announced LaMichael James, I was like, no! I just screamed through the whole house, and they were like,
And
what
your Duck
is
fan
happening?
father, and he didn't even need to turn the draft on. He was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Michael James to the Niners with the 89th overall pick."
Yeah,
JP had just told me.
Yep. Rough era of Niners football.
Yeah, Michael. Anyone can come on the podcast. All they have to do is ask, and
Well,
We
anyone
might-
can
we might-
ask to come on the podcast.
we might and we might say no.
Yeah, We will say no to you, LaMichael.
And Jeremiah Masoli too. He's probably the last Oregon Duck I'd want on here. He tried to steal something.
Yeah, and he went to my high school
And that's where we
people
draw
in.
the line.
LaMichael James, has like a
talking about
history of
Oregon
abuse. Yeah, screw them. And let's talk about other types of blunts. Benny, your turn to go.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Benny blunts.
I smoked a fair amount of my own homegrown stuff throughout the day. It was a great day. The Mariners had a double header today.
Oh, I
love baseball. Headers. Oh man, it was baseball from like 12 o'clock to like the second game just wrapped up.
Wow.
Yeah. I still need. Well, I mean, technically it has a name. It's called Sunset Sherbet. Yeah.
Don't tell my kids I don't want to eat it.
Sunset Sherbet.
Sunset Sherbet.
I love that.
I need to have a name because I grew it, so I want to name it.
All right.
So no naming
Listeners,
contest.
Figure that out.
Not for this.
No. There. Yeah, we should have a
DM
naming
Benny
contest.
with ideas. That's at Benny L 1986.
Yeah.
Ideas for him to name his drugs.
Yeah.
If you want to be associated with drugs, very legal drugs,
Here
then DM Benjamin Lawrence Sebastian Wehage at Benny L 1986.
I did also find a beer. It's called Fresh Catch, and it's supposed to be the best beer to pair with lobster. So
just looked
that's
this
my
up.
contribution.
So I guess you found it on the internet.
I did find it on the internet.
How dare you do the part of the podcast where we look things up without us knowing?
Yeah,
without admitting it. Transparency
I
is
saved
key
us
here,
some
Benny.
time because last
When
week
we're at
took
the
so
part
long.
of the podcast where we look things up, we have to inform the listener that we have arrived at the part of the podcast where we look things up.
Hey,
That
and
is
it also the can says made on honor. That doesn't flow off the tongue very well.
Made on honor.
Made on honor.
That's like
hell
standing
does that
on
even mean?
business. It doesn't really mean anything.
It sounds like someone saying made honor, but they
that has
stuttered
about as
before they
much
said
meaning as
honor.
built, not bought.
No, built not bought stummer.
Made on honor. Okay, where is this beer? Fresh Catch.
Narragansett. Narragansett.
Are you clearing your throat or are you speaking words?
Hey, they've got
Ooh,
cool hats.
JP.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
They have a rope hat. It looks cool, but
Oh,
it does say
man,
"made on honor, sold on merit." That is a terrible slogan.
Oh, that
sorry.
is like a
That
built
is
not
built
bought.
not-
Yeah.
Let's get them to partner with Oregon State. Same mentality.
Oh.
Are they getting fucked in the brewery realignment debacle of 2024?
We were built not bought, but someone kicked the fucking stilts out from what we had built. So it is kind of true.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that arms
Anyway,
race, we would have. Yeah, it would have been a tough hill building.
Yeah.
Building
Yeah,
our
it
guns
would've
when
been.
everyone else is buying theirs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, some of those acquired arms were on full display in the spring showcase on Saturday,
Full?
420 in a packed Research Stadium. It was not packed. I'm not going to make jokes about that because there was some, and I don't even want to get into this. Like you would have expected based on our tone last week. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, you should maybe go listen to it unless you don't want to, which I can't blame you because we were kind of just mad for 2 hours and 15 minutes. You would have expected some hard criticism to come on Oregon State not really marketing its spring game. And maybe I'm just weak or soft, but they gotta get a pass for me on this, like for this year, because I think the spring game ultimately does kind of come down to the coach a lot. And I think it's just something that kind of got stuck in not that I think the university should get an excuse for doing anything business as usual, but I kind of think this sort of fell into business as usual. And it was like, I think there are other things we can focus time, effort, and very careful, approaches to beyond like the spring game. And I know Oregon is going to have like 30,000 plus people at theirs next weekend, and they're having a concert at Autzen after. I don't know who the concert's going to be. I haven't seen that. I don't really care unless it's Drake and Kendrick squashing their beef or igniting it further. I am not interested. So had Scott Barnes been able to get a Drake and Kendrick show, like, yeah, why don't you do that, Scott? That would have been fun.
It's probably
I'm not
like fish.
I'm not that worried about it being a sparsely attended event. Like I hope
on
that
420 for one.
I hope and
Yeah.
I hope that they do revisit this in the future. I'm glad Bray made it like a game format again.
Yeah, shout out
it hasn't
Bray.
been for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see the return to that. And I do think that this is something that should get revisited. But I think even spring games outside of like the SEC, just like they're a thing. And I think it kind of just sort of depends on the university. Minnesota's this year was entirely closed to the public, and there's only select season ticket members could go. So it was like trying to rope people into like paying at a higher tier, which I think is a terrible idea. But it's just, I'm not going to lose sleep over them not really trying to market the spring game much. I do hope that it becomes something that they try to like, at least, like, because I'm just thinking last year it was them opening that new side of Reeser for sure around this time. But I think you could just have like a Beaver Street block party or something like that every year. I just thought of that. It's kind of lame and cheesy, but I think it sounds better than spring showcase anyway. And you just have it timed with when the spring game's going to be and just hype it up to try and have it be like, this is us coming together like in the springtime to gather at Reeser and be excited no matter what else is going on. And I would like to see some more effort on that, but I'm not totally worried about it.
Yeah, it's just nothing burger for me. Like, it doesn't matter if they make the spring game awesome or if the spring game remains the same. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why Oregon is trying to grab their dick all about having 30,000 people at a spring football game. It just like, it doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't matter to me, I guess.
Well, it's inconsequential. I mean, honestly, like, think about what do you get out of having a highly attended spring game?
Exactly.
I mean, for the fans, for the players, for the program, for really anything. Like, nobody's
fun
touting,
and maybe a little bit of money. You could maybe make some money off of it.
Maybe, sure. But like, it's still a practice. Let's just remember, it's a practice that's open to the public. I mean, I have to shout out Coach Bray for making it a game again, because I think that is one reason why Oregon State has had dwindling attendance at the spring game year over year, outside of production on the field and everything else, all the other ensuing chaos. I really think people just got kind of bored of watching this very staged and controlled practice. They wanted to see some live football. And in the latter Riley years, it was, I guess, understandably, they saw the same thing that most fans view the spring game to be, is that why are we putting our bodies on the line for really nothing for the fans when we already do that enough in practice? And so scaling it back to be like a controlled practice, controlled scrimmage. I think Riley used the words controlled scrimmage the first time they switched it up to be like, well, we're doing like offensive sets, defensive sets. They'll be starting on the 25. They're going to start on the 40, whatever. And it was like, whatever. But after you do that 1 season or 2 seasons, 3 seasons plus, you know, the who must not be named years, like, I totally get why there's not that much interest. Also, not that I think it's the wrong thing, but Oregon State didn't talk about it being a game, an orange versus black game.
No, I don't think they tried, because I honestly think there's just bigger shit to worry about now
absolutely.
than trying
I'm not blaming
to make
them
it
for
a
that
big
either.
thing.
But my point is, like,
Neither
of course, like, the interest might have been a little less. Maybe if they told people a week in advance, like, and it's gonna be a game again. We're gonna actually have 2 teams face off. Here are the rules: offensive line, defensive line, whatever. Like, they stay on the field for every team, and like, it's just, you know,
maybe invite us to do a live show.
Sure, get creative.
We'd get some people in the building, like 60.
I think that it played out perfectly in terms of how many people you're going to get there. Because if you would have announced that it was an actual football game format before Dame left, I think Dame leaving would have just had people be like, fuck it, I'm not even going to go. But the fact that they announced it after sort of, I don't know, maybe rejuvenated some people to want to go.
And one point on that too is, I think that is maybe why, like, again, there's nothing you really get out of it in the grand scheme of things to try to blow this event up. It kind of reminds me of, there was a time, like when we were in school, that Midnight Madness was a thing that every school was trying to replicate, that every single school was trying to do something unique that was theirs, on midnight of the first day that they were allowed to like play or practice. And where is that these days?
Yeah, it's in the past, which is sad,
I guess. But is it really? Is it sad? No, it was there. It was served its purpose.
I'm sure I think the Blue Bloods still do it, but
I also think that most programs probably would just appreciate a very standard practice to open their season,
well,
right?
because it just turned into
like
for any
slam dunk
youngsters out
contests.
there who don't remember.
Yeah.
There was a time where a select day in the calendar when college basketball teams could start practicing. So then when
It was like mid-October, like the 15th.
yeah, it was mid-October. So say October 15th. So then it'd be October 14th, immediately after 11:59 p.m. into 12 a.m. on the 15th, there would be an in-person practice. And they'd open the gym, they'd let fans and mostly students come in. I was visiting Baba Ganoush in Seattle one year, so I went to Washington's like my freshman year, weirdly.
Oh,
And it was kind of fun. I know my another friend of mine who went to Kansas said like that was one of the most fun nights at Kansas every year, but that's Kansas. But I think even at a place like that, what ended up just happening was like, okay, we're just turning the basketball arena into the biggest fucking frat party on campus by not letting them like come in until midnight, and then we expect a functional basketball practice to take place here. So I don't even know. I think like people just like have like maybe practice open to the public on the first day of practice rather than it being right at midnight anymore.
Yeah.
But like it's just I hope they'd like do creative things to like still hold it as a game and that's open to the public. But like I don't care if they try to make it a 40,000 person thing. I just would like to see some creativity and some effort in it. I would also like to talk about the actual football if we can move to that part of it.
Yeah, one last point though about the game and how it relates to actual football and why I think that sticking with a game format is actually very important, not just for fans or interest or attendance. But in 2003, there was an explicit question posed to Mike Riley about Trent Bray, who had sporadically played in 2002, was like a backup special teams player, and had a great spring game. And it was like Riley was asked about it. Like, by a quote was, "Do you envision him being on the field a lot this fall?" And his quote was essentially like, "Yeah, he made a lot of good plays. He won't have to worry about playing time this season." And so that's why I think it's important, because you get to see players in real time, in game situations. It's not for the fans for their evaluation of like, oh no, we're only going to be a 6-win team this year, or like, oh, we're definitely going undefeated. It's for the coaches to see how these players do with very little prep, not enough coaching yet, not enough time to gel, build synergy with their teammates, and still show you who has like the instincts, who's just clicking and getting it on their own, and then you make that work on the field come fall. So yeah. I do think that that's very important. I don't know if we saw that yesterday from anybody,
Yeah.
but it can and will happen again as long as we don't just dumb this down to another glorified practice.
Right. Well, and I think it's important to have it like that too at the end of spring camp because it like kind of breaks up the monotony a little bit, where it's like playing an actual game. I know the fans aren't in at practice every day, but just having it be like one sort of glorified practice, or in some instances in the past like few years, a literal practice that they just let fans into, making it the game, kind of the orange versus black format with the offensive line playing, for both teams. I think that part of it works fairly well. I don't know, the people, from listening to the show last week, none of us are prone to freaking out about shit, or hesitant to freak out about shit. But
which one is it?
We're not hesitant. We are prone to freak out about shit. Sorry, but I'm not gonna ever freak out about the performance in a spring game. I think what we saw on Saturday was pretty chalk as far as the spring games go. It's every year the defense is ahead of the offense. That's just every year. That's pretty much every team. That's I heard that every football team growing up, that's what our coaches said, first day of 2 days and in the heat and shit like that. Like, defense just comes first. We have a defensive minded coach. The defensive system is already in place and they're integrating new stuff on offense. That's a layer of why the offense would be behind the defense. And at this point now, it's 10 new starters, and the returning starter is out due to injury, Joshua Gray. He will be back for fall camp is the expectation, but wasn't playing yesterday. So you have new quarterbacks, new receivers, new offensive linemen, which is part of the portal, which sucks. Like, yeah, but I'm not that worried about it. We've been hearing from people about different guys who look great in practice so far this spring. Jabari had a slower start due to injury, but nice to see him throw a touchdown pass to Trent Walker on Saturday. We've heard great things about Walker. Even early in the season last year, he didn't make that many catches, but he got to play in garbage time in a couple of the earlier games. And I was like, you just see a white guy guy wearing number 28. It's like, fuck, is
Yeah.
that Mike Haas? Is Mike Haas back on the field? But he looked like he had some juice and made some nice catches. And we've heard our pal Ryan Harlan has been at a lot of the practices and doing some great work for Beaver's Edge. And he was like, yeah, Walker looks great all spring, and he looked great yesterday as well. I think the defense really controlling the day is a good sign. I think it's a sign that this will be a stout unit once again, even though it's lost some personnel. Jaden Robinson was really hyping up the secondary, said it's just as good as the 2022 secondary, which is great. Skylar Thomas and Alton Julian will be back from big injuries. So I'm fine with the spring game because, I will freak out about having a shitty defense over a shitty offense for sure. So there'll be some lumps with the offense, but this just shows like Oregon State's going to be a good defensive team again. And with our schedule, I think that says we'll be in every single game. Like, I don't see a game that intimidates me after watching this spring game on our schedule with how good we expect this defense to be.
And I think it helps alleviate a lot of pressure from the offense. And then when you have this circumstance that we're facing right now with 90+% of the starters on offense are new to the school, to the system, everything, like it's like a brand new clean slate. And if your defense can't help you out, then one, I would be a little more worried because the defense is, like you said, Terry, like it's still running the same schemes. It still has their leader at the helm. Even if he has a new title, it's still essentially Trent Bray's defense. So if they were looking overwhelmed, then 100% I would start to be worried and concerned about this upcoming season. But if anything, you're right. If the defense is as stout as it looked in spring practice and the spring showcase game, then I think that everything's going to fall into place. It buys time for the offense, and there's talent there. Trent Walker, right? Everyone's talking that he's looked really, really good and essentially like a wide receiver one thus far this spring. And we've got tons of young talent. Like Darius Clemens didn't play, so that is clearly like another big time talent that could be join the fold. And adding additional wrinkles to the offense. Vaslin didn't play either. So, like we were missing weapons. The offensive line was missing starters with Gray, plus some of the transfer guys haven't made it to campus yet that will presumably be starting. The offense did okay. I think given the circumstance, they did okay. But even if that was how they were playing come season time, we'd still buy ourselves like 2 to 3 weeks because the defense could carry us in the majority of games if need be. So not concerned. I was bummed to not see more excitement on the offensive side, but yeah, I mean, they're all still figuring it out. I mean, you're not going to go out there and be like, I've got the playbook totally under control. I know exactly where all these guys are going to be. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be. Let's get creative and have some fun. Like, this wasn't the time for that. So I think fans who are thinking like, oh, it was such a boring offense, or they just made all these predictable plays, easy plays, dump off throws, whatever. Like, yeah, because they were still working through that. I mean,
and they're also not going to show you all of the tricks in the bag, too. Like,
well, no, if they're going to show you a trick, they're not going to be using that.
Open to the public practice is the key term to remember. And also on the offensive side, too, I think the offense would have had a little bit more continuity and smoothness to it had Ben Gulbranson been playing. And so he wasn't playing. The only quarterbacks who are playing have not played in this team, in this offense either. So I don't think it's anything to be worried about. I think anything, the defense having a good day could also turn out to be completely nothing as well. But I think it is more comforting to see that what we all expected to be the strength of the team at least appears to still be a strength of the team. And it's not much deeper than that.
Did you guys see how many reps the receivers who are like freshmen or coming in as redshirt freshmen got? Because that's what sort of struck out to me. I didn't have a chance to watch much of the game, but it seems like if you have 2 new quarterbacks to the system, with Gabari being somewhat young, and all the receivers that are coming in, whether it's a transfer from Michigan, who I think is going to be in his second year, if I'm not mistaken. He only had 1 year in Michigan. And then some of the other freshmen that... Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's still a freshman. He has still
a freshman.
Yeah, 4 years eligibility.
Freshman. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just seems like our receiving core is really, really talented, highly touted, but also really young. So with a position group that you sort of need to shine to make the offense look really good, being so young, I think it should have been expected that the offense was going to struggle.
Yeah. What about, so Benny, you didn't have a chance to watch. I tuned in actually. So I was coaching Little League during the game. And it was the premier Little League game of our season where you get to go play on the real nice field, and they do like a PA announcer. The kids get to pick walk-up music, blah, 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 blah. So it was this big event. I had to get there extra early to do it. It was fun. Yeah, they do it once a year. It's really fun. But I had to get there extra early, so we had to be there by 12:10. So I had to leave at 12, right as the game started. And then I got back at like 2:15, so right as it was done. But I recorded it, and I was watching it afterwards. And I was, obviously, Gulbranson didn't play. McCoy, Johnson, I saw Sanders and Montiel play. Terry, I don't know if you got to see any of their tape at all, but I was curious if you, and Throckmorton got to play.
Throckmorton did get to play, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be brutally honest here. I mean, I thought Don Montiel played probably the best, which makes some sense given he, out of all of them, probably the most reps as a quarterback in the system. But I'm curious how you felt they all played, because to me, they all kind of were interchangeable, which is a little worrisome. But again, I mean, interchangeable in a sense of like no one really was able to showcase what their talent really was. I mean, McCoy and Johnson scrambled a little bit, and I think that the scrambles weren't always by design, and maybe they should have just thrown away the ball to begin with, or made a throw. But yeah, I'm curious if you felt like there was any other separation amongst any of the quarterbacks, because obviously, like, it's still a pretty open QB battle, even if Jabari Johnson might be likely to lay in the reins of it all.
Yeah, I was paying attention to the same thing, and I don't think it's safe to say that anyone, or I don't think it's fair to say that anyone really separated themselves from the pack. I think guys like Throckmorton and Montiel have been around a while, which is credit to them. And when you're in these systems, obviously, I hope Gulbranson's on the team next year, just because I think a guy that's been around like that, like backup quarterbacks are additional coaches, and the really good ones are ready to play if need be, but also do a damn good job of helping the starter to get ready. So we really don't get to see who's doing the best at that. I don't know that anyone really put too much exciting tape on display to get a lot of calls in the spring transfer window, but also the personnel at other schools making those decisions, they get the exclusive practice tape and stuff like that. So I think my kind of biggest takeaway, just by being able to watch him scoot and with the ball a little bit, is I think the Anthony Hankerson hype is real, to say something positive for the offense. Yeah, I think Hank and Jam will be we talked about this a while ago, and I don't want to keep harping on the fact that if you're new here, Damian Martinez left Oregon State, boohoo. But I think it was immediately said within the first few minutes, well, like, at least we're losing a fan favorite best player at maybe our best position. And I think that might prove to be the case. And just the way Hankerson, he's just passes the eye test. I didn't see it. They didn't share a ton of stats from this game either. No. So like
stats.
The next day I Googled Oregon State spring game snap count and felt like an idiot for even thinking that would be like something I could get. But I think that the defense looking good was huge. And yeah, I would have liked to have seen more guys, especially the receivers that you mentioned, Benny. But this is also like, no one's going to risk injury for this. So the concept of spring games is interesting. I feel like I'm simultaneously making the argument for have spring games, make it a game format. And also, it's pointless. Why do it? When really I'm just in the middle, and I'm happy that there's a game format. And I think, a little bit higher on both Jabari and Giovanni after watching it than kind of the recaps of it are. I think their accuracy will improve with more time. I think.
Well, no one was accurate because the offensive line wasn't the actual starting offensive line.
No,
so there was
it wasn't the offensive line. There's a ton of pressure, and I think both of them showed some kind of escapability. The thing to be nervous about is those guys staying healthy for a full 12-game slate, even if there's both of them playing. If there's not one decided starter going into Idaho State, because if they're going to run a lot more than any previous Oregon State quarterback has run, I know DJ ran a lot last year, but as I said and wrote after the first game, DJ looks like Dante Culpepper out there. These are strong guys, exciting athletes, but a lot smaller than what we're used to after last season. So I think there were moments to be excited about, and that's all you can ask for out of a spring game.
Yeah. I really did wish to see maybe just one play where you're like, whoa, okay, like a little bit of a head turner where you're thinking,
or just
if they do that during the season, even once or twice, that could be big. And I don't think we got that. And I think that's to be expected.
There wasn't one. No, you're right.
The remake of the entire offense from top to bottom. So take for what you will. I don't know. I mean, like whatever. But
I saw an article. I was just sort of recapping on it from Bill Oram. So I don't know if people are familiar with this article. Did you see this? It sort of called out. Yeah, sort of called out Oregon State fans for not showing up.
And I've agreed with a lot of things that Bill has written over the last year. And this is kind of why I started with what I did, just because the spring game was a snooze fest.
Yeah.
I don't think the spring game being a snooze fest is really an issue. And I think Bray probably didn't want to overplay a hand, especially not knowing what he had, especially on offense.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as that. And I don't totally push back. Bill's essentially making everything we said last week and applying it to just a spring game.
Yeah.
But I think having a boring, lightly attended spring game isn't a bad thing at all. Like, I remember flipping through the spring game slate last year and watching some of UW's spring game to, be like, oh, I wonder how Penix will be in like year 2. And UW's supposed to, be a team that will be in contention with if we want to win this conference the last year to exist. And like, no one was fucking there. And there was hype going in for that team as well. It's just always been a tough draw, it seems. Like, I don't care. And I respect Bill a lot. And I've agreed with so many things he's written, but I do, like Benny, you saying it's a nothing burger. I just kind of think that's what it is.
Yeah.
The article or the game?
No, just the spring game in general. Like the thought that Oregon State might be asleep at the wheel from a marketing standpoint by not putting anything into the spring game.
No.
I think
it's the organification of the spring game.
I don't want to hear you say organification again either.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
They did not start this shit.
They're the only ones trying this hard to sustain it. And if somebody's telling you you're not doing it well because they're doing it better and for some reason,
that's a locally biased way of covering it. That of course any Oregon-based media member, it's state of Oregon-based media member is going to see it through that lens. Oregon's not doing anything that any SEC program isn't doing. Like, it's not new, it's not groundbreaking or anything. Like, Oregon's
they're not saying
they're having a concert to make money, and also they have a strong team coming back after like a big season. I think had Jonathan Smith not left and Oregon State won 10 games last year, then like, okay, let's shoot to maybe get 15,000-20,000 people for a spring game. The momentum's not there. So I don't
not there. And
I don't think it's fair to criticize Oregon State for not trying to do anything. And I don't think it's steeped in any kind of grander marketing strategy for either institution.
And we have bigger fish to fry than winning off-season trophies. It just doesn't matter.
I agree. I'm not saying that we should be skewering our athletic department over the spring games marketing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that when that becomes the expectation and it's driven by this belief that other programs and schools have been pushing to as a separator and differentiator of their programs versus other programs, then that becomes problematic all around. I thought it was problematic reporting in general, bad journalism. Sorry, Bill.
It's fine journalism. It's the facts and also a column, so it's his opinion. So
yeah, I would say it was more opinion.
I think worrying about this and even worried about what Oregon is doing from an Oregon State perspective is a waste of time.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not saying we should be worried about what they're doing.
100%.
Are you saying that I'm saying that we should be worrying about what they're doing and keeping up?
I think you're reading too much into Bill's article. I think everything he said is fair, but I also just think I don't think it's that deep.
I think that there's a lot of discourse beyond the article with the same sentiment. That's what I'm trying to
where is this discourse? Twitter comments? Because who fucking cares?
Well, we do. We engage engage with people on Twitter. I think that Twitter is a sometimes healthy way to engage with others, but
anyone who's drawing conclusions based off of that is not worthy of attention. And I don't blame a journalist for pointing out that one school had 3,000 people at a spring game when they had 3,000 people at a spring game, and when another school sold 30,000 tickets to a spring game when they did in fact sell 30,000 tickets to a spring game.
Sure, but that wasn't the point of the article. The point of the article
that essentially is the point of the article.
No, the point of the article was
I don't want to argue with you about that.
Oh my God. It was to skewer
the point of the article
Oregon
is not to, no, it was not to skewer Oregon State. We essentially did the exact same thing Bill did on our show last week. And I'm just defending Bill's right to say that right here. Because we were asking for Oregon State to be creative and be aggressive and do something. We weren't saying, hey,
game.
Sure, it doesn't matter. But that's what he's essentially pointing out.
He's saying we missed the mark because we didn't do something for the spring game.
I'd rather have Jensen build
saying that's feeding into pro-Oregon discourse, JP, is fucking ridiculous.
What? No, I didn't say pro-Oregon discourse. I'm saying knocks on Oregon State discourse. I'm not talking about, I wasn't talking about Oregon at all. All I was saying was...
it's sloppy journalism based on discourse about like skewering the Oregon State athletic department.
Oregon State missed the mark, screwed it up, didn't do enough, should have had more fans there, should have promoted it better. Yeah, that discourse does exist.
I think it's totally fair for someone to think that. I don't think it matters, and it's totally fair for someone to think that and also report on it.
But he reports on it saying that it does matter.
Sure.
Yeah.
He thinks
it matters. Bad journalism to say that matters.
It's not bad journalism to say that matters.
You just said it doesn't matter. So is our podcast bad journalism?
I don't think it. No, I disagree with the point he got to, but just because I disagree with it doesn't mean it's bad journalism.
I wouldn't say he got to it. That was the entire premise of the article. Go read it again.
It's just because you disagree with the point of the article was that Oregon State should have done something more for the spring game. I don't think it matters that they didn't do it. That doesn't mean I think anyone who disagrees with my opinion on that is guilty of bad journalism. It's a fair article. It's absolutely a fair article. And I don't think our podcast is bad journalism. I think our podcast is fantastic. We made a lot of great points last week. And that a lot of that was applied to being creative and trying to drum up more hype for a spring game, which I think is a totally fair criticism of a quote unquote snooze fest that I believe Bill called it. And Canzano called it that too. And I think both those guys were right. And I think arguing with you about this is silly. But to say you can say I disagree with it, but to call it bad journalism
I feel like
outrageous.
You flipped sides on your argument.
How have I flipped sides?
Well, earlier, Benny and I were both just saying that it's a good thing that it wasn't promoted because, like, we don't need to do anything like that for a spring game. I don't think they needed
to, but when you call out a journalist for committing bad journalism just because we disagree with them, I'm going to push back on that. It's not bad journalism. We just disagree with what he wrote.
All right.
That's
whatever.
That's what happens. That's what happens with a free press, JP.
I'm not saying you can't write his article.
Exact same opinion.
But I could still say whatever I want in my opinion if he wants to put his in the
say whatever you want. And
so
it's bad journalism. I think it's bullshit to call bad journalism.
It's bad journalism. It's bad journalism.
I think the person who teaches journalism and writing classes telling you that it's not bad journalism and you just disagree with them is something that maybe you should listen to.
On my podcast, I'm going to tell you that this is bad journalism.
On our podcast.
Me talking on the podcast. Me talking on our podcast will say, Jesus, Terry, you are so defensive, man. What is wrong with you? If he could talk about this being a snooze fest, I could talk about this being bad journalism. I'm not targeting you, dude. Chill out. I'm not talking bad about journalists. I'm not talking bad about somebody who teaches journalism classes. I'm saying that this article was stupid. It was absolutely stupid. It was 100% uncalled for. And even if it's a fair point that it was a snooze fest, it had nothing to do with the program. It has nothing to do with the program. It has nothing to do with the viability of the program. No, it doesn't. We just talked about this. This has nothing to do with the program. We literally just said that. We just said that. So if I want to say, if you
want to say it's bad journalism, and I don't think it's bad journalism, I'm going to tell you it's not bad journalism.
And I'm going to tell you it is. So whatever. We're going to keep going back and forth for the next 2 hours.
We can keep going back and forth for the next 2 hours. I think it's missing the fucking point.
What's the point then? What was his point?
His point was that it was a missed opportunity for Oregon State to create some noise that focuses on the good things that Oregon State is doing.
I think they did do that. And I would say that anything beyond that is outlandish, and I disagree.
Okay.
Whatever else he proposed, comparing
I think
Oregon.
You're a little sensitive to just his point that there was a pretty unremarkable day at Reser, which I think is fine that it was an unremarkable day at Reser, but he still needs to write an article and apply his thoughts to what took place. Bad journalism feels like a step too far.
It's not. Moving on.
All right, moving on. What do you want to talk about next? Baseball or gymnastics?
Let's talk about baseball. We'll save some good news for last.
Is it fair to say going 0-3 in Berkeley is bad?
That is fair. I do think, I don't know. I keep going back to the fact that we have one program, well, other than gymnastics, we have one program that is doing anything right now that's successful. And I think that people should be excited about, and that we're nationally ranked. And we have a very strong chance to be a contender for a national championship. Like, that's the team that seems to be making the most people frustrated. Which is, I get with high expectations, there is little room for error and little room for understanding, I think, from the fan base. But getting swept in Berkeley is not ideal. It's not good. It doesn't make you feel good as a fan. But people coming out and saying that this team has no shot at Omaha and that our bullpen is not going to get us past the regionals. And I mean, first of all, that's not true, because bullpens have bad outings. Like, I would say that's where you're going to lose the majority of your games, is from the bullpen. And secondly, like, this team should be making people happy. When we're looking at all of the programs before football kicked off this year, I would say that baseball had the best opportunity to do something really special, and that people were probably most excited about baseball outside of football, probably. And so, like, this team should be making people happy. And yeah, we had a really bad weekend, but you know, we have a very good team that had a very bad weekend, and the sky's not falling. And people shouldn't feel like it is. Yeah,
I think the way in which they lost too is a thing. Like, a walk-off walk, when it happens against you, is just feels demoralizing.
Yeah,
no matter what the overall record is. The team is 30-9. If you're worried about regionals, I'll remind you that the team is 19-1 at Goss, and even with this recent road woes, it's still lining up to at least hosting regionals. I know we had expectations of hosting super regionals. There's some work to do to ensure that happens, but
I think you can still take care of business and expect to host.
Absolutely. And the good news, even though it didn't immediately translate into wins, but Travis Bazzana played and will not be lost for a long period of time.
Yep. I would take if I had the chance, or if I had the choice of us sweeping and losing Travis Bazzana for an extended period of time, or for us to get swept but Travis Bazzana be okay, I would take the latter every single time. And here's the point that I really wanted to make was that you have teams, I would say, in the top 10, really the top 5, that are all about even. I mean, the game against Arkansas is a great example of that. That game was a matchup of two very, very good teams, either of whom could be the number 1 team in the country or be the number 5 team in the country. And it really is all stacked like that in the top 5 and kind of the top 10. But the point is like, it's just a matter of who's playing well at the right time. And Oregon State's not playing very well in the last week. And that's okay. They're still just as good of a baseball team as the other teams in the upper echelon of NCAA baseball. And as long as they're playing well, win the regionals and super regionals, and Omaha is happening, they'll be fine. It's about streaks. It's about runs. And right now you're on a dip, but you're going to come back out of it. It'll be fine.
They need to get fine first, though, to be fine. And I think that I know people want to blame this on pitching staff, coaches. Some people are also knocking and pushing back against that narrative and saying it's the defense. It's everything. And I think they work collectively. And that's where it's funny watching fans go back and forth about who's at fault, why this is a problem. Like, hello, it's baseball. Like, if your pitchers on the mound are struggling, which is commonplace in baseball over the course of any length of a season, your defense is going to want to pick up the slack. And a team that is as talented and tight as an Oregon State baseball team, they're going to be trying their damnedest to make sure that they can pick up their brothers. And so what happens when you try a little too hard? You make mistakes, all right? And then when you're a pitcher and you go, damn it, if I don't make this pitch and I put it in play, I'm worried about my defense behind me being able to make that play. Because right now we're walking on eggshells. And then you start to miss the zone, you start to leave them over the middle, and that's exactly what's going on right now. And I think that they just need to get into a room and just be like, fuck all this. We've got you, you've got us, I've got you, you've got me. Like, get it right, get it straight. Shake all this last series off against Cal. It became too predictable, and too predictable is not because of coaching or talent level. Let's get that clear. These are some top tier coaches. This is a top tier program, and these are top tier college baseball athletes. There is just a overemphasis on people trying to perform to pick up the slack that leads to sloppy play, to leads to sloppy pitching. And that's where the fact that it was this predictable is where I realized there isn't just somebody who's not good who's getting trotted out there on the mound. There isn't somebody who's just not good playing out of position or playing, it should have been a defensive replacement late in the game that like this. It's clearly just a synergy thing that these guys need to get back on the same page about. And I do think that there is a very quick way to right the ship, but we're running out of time to do that. That is the thing. I mean, we are in third place right now in the pack in like a 4-way tie or something crazy. So 5-way tie or 4-way tie for second, and we are now sitting third behind Arizona and Oregon. And
there's only two more series at Goss too,
and 2 more of our series that are against Arizona and Oregon. So we're running out of time to try to get it right because these games matter maybe more so in so many ways than any others this season. But I think it's because of the kind of dual agenda of we need to beat these guys to get ourselves in a better position in the conference, and we need to put together clean performances against them as well in order to win. And both those things are going to be tough to do at the same time. So I'm not pushing back on anyone who is shouting doomsday right now, because that is going to be a tall task, but it is a quick fix and it has to get done now. So I hope that they will, but at the same point, like it's baseball, and even the greatest athletes can't sometimes turn things around that quickly.
It is the point of the season too, where it's hard to push back on anyone yelling doomsday, because we all said it here, for the season to be a success, it has to at least end in Omaha, at least get to Omaha. The standard is the standard, and obviously the last, I think it's 1-5 in the last 6 games is not up to the standard. I think back just on what I mentioned with the way in which the losses came, 2 walk-offs, and then today being particularly demoralizing because Segura had a nice start today. And how many times have you only scored 3 runs in a game? Like, you don't want to lose a series at Cal, but if you let your starter on the mound get that win, you score 6, 7, whatever, and win 7-4 just to get one win on the way out and not waste a solid starting pitching performance, you feel better about it. Because I mean, it's baseball, and it's everything. It's not just one person who's a sieve on defense. It's not just one pitching group. It kind of just all came together in the worst way, a perfect storm of bad for this last series. They won't have much time to dwell on it, which I think is good. Tuesday against the Pilots at Ron Tonkin Field in Hillsborough. JP, will you be in attendance? It's an early game, so it's tough, but
I'm looking into it, but probably not. Usually the Ron Tonkin Field game, that Portland game is one I do try to get to each time they're there, but it might not be in the cards either for Tuesday.
That was where we first met Fun Killer Steve, right? In a Chapham shirt?
Yeah. Yes. And that was also where somebody came up to me in the bathroom and said Chapham, but I
thought that was
you
Steve. That's different listener. Just great memories made for the whole family, Ron Tonkin Field. But get out there if you are in the Portland or / Hillsborough area. Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. against the Pilots, and then 4 games against Oregon. This is where, JP, I need to ask you this. Benny, you probably know too. We have 3 games against Oregon at Goss on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then another Tuesday game against Oregon at PK Park in Eugene. Does that fourth game against Oregon doesn't count in the conference standings, right?
I think it does.
It does? Okay. Because the first time they would do this, where there'd be a regular season series and then just like a couple more 4
A midweek
one-offs
series.
that were regular season games, but not Pac-12 conference games. And you'd think in like the 5th or 6th year of this that I would know this by now, but I don't. I'm sorry. I'm being honest about it. But I think winning these games at Goss is absolutely critical. Winning all 4, don't want to give those bastards an inch of anything. But yeah, so it's 3 games against the Ducks starting this Friday at Goss, and then 1 day of reprieve, and then a Tuesday night game, PK in Eugene. If you go to all 4 of those games, DM us some proof and we'll send you something, because that would be
I will
badass.
be nervous. If we come out of the Oregon series any less than 3-1, if we don't win the series of the 4 games against Oregon, I'll be nervous. If we can win this series, I think that is a very good sign for this team. And Terry, I agree with you. Getting a game as early in the week as possible is a big key to this too.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'd be nervous because I think that is maybe confirming a trend that is just beyond home and away splits. But I would also say we have, if history continues with our home ability to win a home at Goss, like then we have to win against Wazoo, and we have to win in Tucson.
God, that Tucson series is going to be fucking huge.
And who knows, by then, Damian Martinez might
be an Arizona Wildcat.
It might be a cat.
Based on their history of placing dudes in the high rounds of the NFL draft.
Yeah, maybe he'll be in attendance.
Oh my God, I'm not ready for that.
Throwing out the first pitch.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That would be some knife twisting shit if Dave throws out the first pitch. I don't know that I could forgive that.
God damn.
I kind of hope it happens though. Just give me more chaos. Fuck it.
That's if Arizona can afford a ball to give him for the first pitch, though. They're struggling. They're struggling financially.
God, they are. We need like a special episode just to dissect that complete shit show that has led to Arizona being $250 million in the hole as an academic institution without, I don't know if anyone's been fired for it yet either. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's not what this podcast is about. Google that shit though, because it is kind of fascinating.
It is.
Softball unfortunately dropped 2 of 3 against the 22 ranked Ducks, but did get one 3-0 victory in the middle of that series. So shout out softball for not letting those bastards sweep us.
Well, and also, yeah, they seem to be enjoying playing spoiler to these ranked teams.
Yeah.
I love to see it, and I think that's that kind of experience and that kind of tenacity is going to bode very well. It reminds me of the women's hoops team this year, as much as it pains me to speak of them last year, where they were able to win against very tough opponents. They just couldn't string them together, and I think softball kind of feels like they're in that boat right now. So
nice.
Continue to stack up some wins that people didn't think you'd get, and yeah, you'll feel a lot more confident going into next season.
Yeah, and the Laura Berg team, I don't care what sport they're playing, but especially softball, you can't ever count out a team coached by Laura Berg. We do have one of the most decorated athletes. JP, last week on the show, you called Jade Carey one of the best athletes Oregon State has had in 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, maybe ever. And she went on to prove that, taking 2 second-place finishes at Nationals, your national runner-up in floor and all around, got over a 9.9 on the floor for, I think it's like something like the 150th consecutive routine or something. That's been 9.9 plus, and also fourth on the vault, and then top 20 nationally in bars. So that all around dominance really making the case to go to Paris later this summer. But yeah, huge performance for Jade at the national championships.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone know like what the odds are looking like for her to be on the team? Maybe not an alternate or anything.
That's a Warren question. We should just DM Warren right now or call him, see if he can just come on the show live.
Yeah, because I mean, it does feel like it'd be a no-brainer. One, for just the U.S.'s image of returning a celebrated and decorated athlete. Benny just dropped. He's heard enough. Right? I mean, like, she was one of the most recognizable faces of the Olympics 2 years ago, from 4 years ago. Right. That was supposed to be 4 years ago. And so maybe it was 3 years ago, whatever it was, but no, it was 4 years ago. It was
supposed to be 4, was 3.
All
at 2, who cares?
Yeah. So I feel like you kind of have to bring her back. And unless she tells you otherwise or shows you otherwise, then I get it. But all that she has demonstrated this entire year, the last 3 years, is that she might be one of the most consistently dominant athletes in the United States when it comes to Olympic competition.
Sorry, I was trying to look up projected gymnasts 2024 Olympics.
Ooh, that's a good lookup.
To have ready. Yeah, she's the fifth name that comes up after Simone Biles, Suni Lee, Leanne Wong, Gabby Douglas, and Jade Carey. Gabby Douglas, wow. I guess announced that she's trying to make a comeback. But so if she's popping up, at least I think, there's a possible like 12 total go, including alternates. So I know we're not watching tape on the other gymnasts in consideration constantly, but that's what our guy Warren is for keeping us humble and keeping us informed. But if you were going into this through the lens of what can Jade Carey do to cement her place in another Summer Olympic Games, I think she did that this year. And in her third full season competing as an Oregon State gymnast, that's pretty damn exciting.
Oh, actually, ironically, a site called MinnesotaBets.com has Jade.
That's my side hustle.
So they put out odds. Yes.
Did they? Oh,
so
wow.
Simone Biles at -6,000, which is a shoo-in. Shalise Jones is next at -5,000. So both of them have an above a 98% chance to join based on the odds. Jade Carey is third on the list at -750, which would be an 88.2% chance. So yeah,
okay.
I like those odds. Thanks, Minnesota Bets.
I like those odds. Apart from the nefarious nature of the state in which this website is based, I like everything you're saying. We famously have not made sports betting legal here yet. So a site called Minnesota Bets is funny to me for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think they have some disclaimers saying that it's not legal there. MinnesotaBets.com created these odds exclusively. They will not be found at Minnesota sportsbook apps, even if they were legal. So good. This is someone that's just super bored, I think. But I'm taking their predictions to heart. This is funny.
Yeah, I mean, from the three gymnasts you said, based on my very limited understanding of odds for U.S. Olympic gymnasts, all sound like they're on the up and up. So I trust it.
Well, yeah, and Olympic trials, by the way, will be held June 27th through the 30th in Minneapolis. So maybe that's why they're showing up on Minnesota Bets. Maybe there's some insider info.
I had no idea the gymnastics Olympic trials were going to be here.
Yeah,
it's
I thought everything was just always in like Colorado Springs. Or
these odds were given by Jim Tomlin. Do you know Jim Tomlin? Do you know who he is?
Of course, everyone in Minnesota knows Jim Tomlin. I'm just kidding. I don't know Jim Tomlin. Jimmy T. Oh, yeah. Now we can say Carey's going for sure. Never steered me wrong, man. He was taking bets in Target parking lots 20 years ago. I fucked up and forgot to do a seam-headed read early in the episode. So I'm just going to do one now while there's still time. This episode of the Belligerent Beavs podcast is brought to you by our friends at seamheaded.com. Seamheaded for all baseball enthusiasts, making apparel, equipment, fanny packs, maybe some shot glasses, bar attire. I don't know if they've ventured into that yet. We need to get with our guy, Pat the Bat Ryan. I just decided to start calling him Pat the Bat Ryan. I think he'll accept.
I like that.
There is the great Belligerent Beavs collection that the folks at Seamheaded made exclusively for us and just for Belligerent Beavs listeners and Oregon State fans. When you purchase any item from the Belligerent collection at seamheaded.com, use the promo code CHOP'em at checkout for 31% off all items from the Belligerent collection. Once again, that is promo code CHOP'em at checkout, which gets you 31% off, aka the noisest discount in the game. Seamheaded.com. Tell them the Bebe sent you. Hit up Pat the Bat Ryan. Making Pat the Bat Ryan a thing, and let them know. And if you're a fan of any team besides the Minnesota Twins, you're probably having a more fun baseball season than me right now. And he's got dope merch associated with every single Major League Baseball team and some other college teams as well. So if you're listening to this and you're somehow a fan of a college baseball team that's not the Oregon State Beavers, then change that and start cheering for the Beavers, you bastard. Seamheaded.com, promo code CHOP'em. Check them out.
Hit the
I
ad.
should order some. I should order some more seam-headed stuff.
I just
to
went onto their website.
shed some light.
Yeah.
I want to get that batting practice apparel and then maybe actually just like go to a park and swing a bat.
Damn, he's got a lot of stuff on here.
Yeah, they really expanded their inventory over the last year or so. They're doing a great job. Good stuff over there. Even though they pay us to say it's good stuff, it's actually good stuff. I would say it's great stuff even if they didn't pay us to say anything.
I like
And a beaver with a baseball bat, by the way. I mean, that's as an MLB-ish logo. Right. That's great. That's a great look.
Way better than Harmon Killebrew. Rest in peace.
True.
If that is, I think it's never been actually confirmed that that's Harmon Killebrew. It's just
his nose is too pointy.
It does look like him a bit though.
Well, you know what, the Mini Bebe told me like 3 years ago we were watching MLB TV, and this is like before they had the MLB TV commercials that are like ASMR instead of it just being like the blue screen. And it was the blue screen, and it just has the MLB logo. And he was like, "Dad, why is there a duck on the screen?"
It does look like a duck.
I've never looked at it.
And
that
you can
way.
never unsee it. Oh, you'll never be able to unsee it. We just drew in the MLB logo for so many listeners.
I know. I'm sorry, but it looks like a duck with its beak open. Like
that's why you got to get that.
Oh no!
That's why.
It does.
Frankenstein's chick. Oh no! That's why you got to get the MLB-ish logo with the beaver bat version because it's better.
Yeah.
It fixes it. Wait, JP, I meant to ask you this: what batting appearance song did the Mini Bebe choose for this Little League game?
Well, his first one was Since '84 by Mac Dre, and I could play 5 seconds of that. JP, please play 5 seconds of Since '84 by Mac Dre.
Let's do it. What it is.
Yes.
And then
keeping the spirit of Mac Dre alive one Little League game at a time. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then second at bat he was trying to mix it all up. So he said, he was like, "Dad, I heard the kids last week that were playing on the big kid field and they had their songs, and like a lot of them had rock songs." And he's like, "Most of them are gonna be rap songs, so I'm gonna mix it all in." But so that'll get to my next point. But Since '84 is kind of the in-between of rock and rap because it's got the guitar riff, right? And then his next one was Next Episode by Dr. Dre, of course. And he wanted the non-edited version, but I told him that's not possible.
He's heard the non-edited version?
Yeah. Hey, it's artist expression. It's not bad journalism. And
okay.
And then the last one was Savior by Rise Against. He wanted like something that was like edgy and hardcore, or sounded hardcore, at least on a speaker. But like they only did the intro, so it was just like weird spoken word. It didn't work out very well.
I think about this way too much. I think about my walk-up song.
We had a 40-minute Benny's Bonus Belligerence episode about the Out of the Bullpen song.
That's right.
Like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me ask you, before we end the episode, let me ask you this. We talk about how, we probably have talked about this already, but I still want to hear your answer. AC/DC's way overplayed for OSU football. What song do you guys want that changed to?
What is it? This is the before going into the fourth quarter.
This is going. No, this would be like
in mid fourth quarter.
No, this would be like their entrance song because they play TNT.
Was TNT the entrance? I know TNT plays at Research a lot. So we could choose our favorite entrance song. In hypothetically,
like what
entrance song's different because I do want Party in the USA played at Research, but not as the entrance song.
No, you can't play that as the entrance song.
Not as the entrance song.
Come on.
That's why I'm asking on timing, because I want this to be very clear.
It's Thursday night, 7:00. Oregon State's football team is lined up. They're being held back. The entrance is about to happen. They're showing the highlights up on the big screen. The smoke goes off. The team comes rushing in. What song's playing?
Immediately, my head has gone to X Gon Give It To You by DMX. But that might even be too old for the the kids of today. Or Hit 'Em Up by Tupac. I'm going with Rap. Yeah. If any of the three of us hit 'em up.
Gotta be Hit 'Em Up. It's gotta be Hit 'Em Up. I mean, just think about how hard that intro.
JP and I are in agreement, so we can finally end this podcast in peace.
Okay. Hey, but think about how hard that intro would sound with no beat.
Unedited.
Yeah, completely unedited.
Yeah.
Artist expression.
Yeah. Good journalism.
Man. Okay.
You could even riff on you could make it like specific. Like you could change the intro a little bit. Like instead of saying like, fuck Mobb Deep, you could say fuck whoever you want.
Well, that was the outro.
Yeah. That is the outro. You're correct.
Yeah.
The beginning
is I ain't got no motherfucking friends.
And we don't. I guess we can call the Cougs a friend, but whatever.
Yeah.
That takes away the dramatic effect.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, we could be business partners.
Okay. Do we still have time to play 5 seconds of Hit 'Em Up, or are we in the outro music already?
I can do it.
All right, dude. Please play JP, please play 5 seconds of Hit 'Em Up by Tupac.
I ain't got no motherfucker. So I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker.
There you go.
And whenever that 5 seconds of that great song and the new entrance song for the Oregon State football team, effective August 31st, 2024, when the Beavs open against Idaho State. I hope you enjoyed that. It will be at Reeser now and forever, because they have given us that kind of power. Smart decision making, Scott Barnes. We thank you. This has been episode 138 of the Belligerent Beavs podcast. Thank you, listener, for being here with us. Thank you, Seamheaded, for sponsoring us. Thank you, Oregon State baseball, for this, 16, 17 game winning streak you're about to go on. We will enjoy all of those, especially the 4 that come against the Oregon Ducks, because fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them.
I have been Terry Horseman, at Terry Horseman on Twitter, at Terrence Holstman on Instagram.com. Joined as I always am by my beloved co-hosts and best friends from college, JP Bertram on the ones and twos, the man steering the ship. He's at the Trill J on Twitter. That's at the _Trill_J, because he's too trill to be real. And at JP Bertram on Instagram. Also here, always here, even though you dropped weirdly for about a second and a half there, Ben.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah,
Benjamin Lawrence Sebastian Weehage, aka Benny Bowl Game, aka Benny Blastoff, aka Benny Bedlam, because he's fucking crazy, folks, aka Benny with the good quaff. He is on all platforms. Benny L 1986. What a great year that was, Benny.
Such a good year. Oh man, flock of seagulls.
A lot of momentous occasions in your life happening, especially on September 23rd.
Oh yeah.
Follow us at Belligerent Beavs on Twitter, at Belligerent Beavs everywhere else. That's Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky, MySpace, Friendster, Napster, whatever stir. If it's on the internet, we're there at Belligerent Beavs. Please rate, review, like, subscribe. Go to Spotify or Apple right now, or wherever you get your podcast. Go into that little review section. Spotify actually recently made this more complicated, so that's the reason why I think we have less 5-star reviews than we should. But go up, rate show, rate it 5 stars. If you'd like to send us a little message, you can do that too. We love hearing from you all. We love interacting with you. We love our listeners. You guys are all the best. It really helps us grow the show a lot. And please take the time to verbally or textually share the show with a friend. We put a lot of effort into this and we appreciate it a lot. So please do that. Thank you so much for doing that. And also please tune in again next week to another thrilling episode of the Belligerent Beavs podcast as we follow this baseball season all the way to the end. And we hope that is a midsummer in Omaha, baby. Until then, live long, prosper, peace and prosperity to you all. And remember, you can't spell chop 'em without hope. So chop 'em.
Drop them.
Chop 'em.
Hit 'em up.
I ain't got no motherfucking friends.